So I was roped into watching the latest Doctor Strange film by the missus last night. Not something I was particularly looking forward to, but hey, whatever keeps her happy. I sat down with very, very low expectations and was subjected to easily the dumbest film with one of the worst scripts I've seen in recent times. It really took me off guard with just how bad this film is and how on the nose the political messaging is as well, while also not really having a coherent or even clear political message it's trying to push other than we're in on the agenda. This film is truly like a rotten onion. You peel away one layer and find another even more disgusting layer underneath it, and as such, I felt compelled to sit down and vent about it. Hopefully, you can get something out of this review too. Honestly, I've not watched or cared about Marvel products for a while now. The last full thing I watched was WandaVision, which sucked, and the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, whose political messaging was so blatant that I couldn't view it as anything other than propaganda. And this film has vindicated my initial decision to stay away. As much as people have been complaining for a while about Marvel films becoming unintelligible sludge, I had thought that they were still putting out some worthwhile content, at least around the 2017 and 2018 mark, before they started to release feminist rubbish like Captain Marvel, a film in which the moral of the story is that women who fall over can indeed stand back up and also commit genocide, which is fine as long as you're a girl boss while you're doing it. But Doctor Strange really does live up to the charges of a big, flashy mess that has no true heart or moral centre. Now, it is not all negative though. There are in fact parts I liked about the film, all of which came from Sam Raimi's direction. Bruce Campbell's obligatory cameo was pretty good and a nice little reminder of what a hilarious physical actor he is.
Pizza Papa always gets paid.
And there are a number of references to the Evil Dead films, including Wanda putting her arm through a mirror that turns to water, and the entire last act where Doctor Strange possesses the corpse of a dead alternate universe version of himself where he looks a lot like a Deadite from Army of Darkness, which I enjoyed. The sequence where Doctor Strange travels to another universe and meets an evil alternate version of himself as well who destroyed his universe is pretty campy fun, and Benedict Cumberbatch really got to play it up in parts of this film, and it's great when he does that. And there's also just the stylistic choices like shot choice and camera movement that stand out from the usual bland Marvel affair and show that Raimi had at least some creative control to express his rather unique vision. This is also easily the goriest Marvel film put out in the mainline series. It's neutered a bit so that they can keep that PG-13 rating, but people get burned alive, impaled, unravelled like silly string before their heads pop, bisected, and much more. And this did help the action scenes to feel a bit more visceral at times, and although the main characters all have hefty plot armour protecting them at all times, the alternate universes introduce enough throwaway characters that the film can kill off, so we at least understand there's a threat from Wanda, the main villain. Finally, there were some decent moments with Doctor Strange and his love interest Christine, although their relationship is so underdeveloped at this point it's hard to care about the two of them together. She's not shown up since the first Doctor Strange film and has apparently moved on in the 5 years since the snap, something we're supposed to care about. Possibly we could have explored this a little more had this actually been a Doctor Strange film instead of a stealth Scarlet Witch flick in disguise. And here we're on to the negatives, which make up literally everything else about the film. Despite bearing his name in the title, Doctor Strange has very little to do other than to protect and ferry about the walking MacGuffin that is America Chavez, a new character who is introduced in this film as a young Hispanic girl with the power to hop universes, although she can't yet control those powers properly. Wanda is after her so that she can kill her, absorb her powers, and use them to get to a universe where her fake children from WandaVision actually exist so she can take the place of that universe's Wanda, who she'll have to kill. This is already starting to sound very convoluted, isn't it? This leaves very little time for Doctor Strange's personal conflict, other than the occasional idea that he might turn evil if he uses the Darkhold, an evil book of spells that corrupted Wanda. But it seems that everyone who uses this book turns evil, so I don't get why there's so much emphasis on him in particular turning evil, other than him being so powerful, but in a universe when you've got Captain Marvel, surely you'd also be concerned about her. But there's now countless unimaginably powerful characters in the MCU, so the focus on him doesn't really feel earned as far as I'm concerned, other than this being his film. So I guess we have to give him some kind of internal conflict, maybe. As you can imagine from the plot description I've given so far, a lot of this film focuses on Wanda and her development and internal conflict at the detriment of the actual title character of the film. But I will harp on that once I've gone over a few other things that should help provide context as to why the attempt to villainize Wanda fails. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has become a masterclass in how to ruin the stakes of your universe and take all of the tension out of every fight scene by blowing up the characters' power levels to such ridiculous degrees that it becomes hard to simply comprehend exactly what any of these characters can do to each other. Wanda is said to be able to manipulate reality itself now, due to her taking the power of the Scarlet Witch, something which you have to have watched WandaVision to understand, and when you know the characters are capable of something like this, the question becomes, why doesn't she do this all the time? If she can bend reality, why does she spend so much time shooting lasers like someone out of bloody Dragon Ball when she should be erasing people from existence using just her mind? And if that's something she can't do, it just goes to show how confused and unclear her powers are. It's the same with Doctor Strange himself. At the beginning of the film, we see that he now suddenly has the power to conjure monster heads that can chomp on his enemies. He only does this once. Is it not something that could be very handy in other situations? If he can do this, what else can he do? Does he have some kind of World of Warcraft cooldown timer on his abilities? How am I supposed to understand the stakes of any fight scene when the characters have ill-defined powers at best and don't take advantage of the ones I don't know they can use? Answer, I can't, and all the tension dissipates because now all I know is we're dealing with idiots. Because the characters that we're viewing are supposed to be intelligent is one of the things that can make them compelling, but that intelligence isn't supposed to just switch off the second someone starts throwing punches and things start blowing up. When the characters act stupid in action scenes, that's not something separate from the character, it's a display of their character, and it makes them harder to take seriously in every other scene when we begin to recognise that they might turn into a moron and at any second if the script depends on it to get to the desired set pieces. And that's what a whole lot of this film boils down to, dumbing down every character and throwing in every coincidence imaginable to get to the flashy set pieces that you are after, supposedly. And no doubt some of those set pieces are very impressive. I just don't care what happens to any of the characters in them. And on that note, this also comes in as public enemy number one of films you absolutely cannot understand without watching literally everything that came before it. To understand the Darkhold, the mystical evil magic book that holds the whole plot together, you have to have watched at least WandaVision and possibly Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and also the third series of The Runaways as well. All that trash TV just to understand what this stupid MacGuffin does in this film. Even after watching it, I'm still unsure of what it does, other than make you more powerful in a nebulous way and corrupt the people who use it. Oh, and there's also a Darkhold book in every universe of the Infinite Universes, but there's only one temple monument in the main Marvel universe that's somehow tied to all of them, and if you destroy that one, they all burn. Begging the question of how did the other Darkholds get out into the universes, if this is the only universe that has a temple that the spells could be copied from, unless this existing just materialised Darkholds in all of the other universes. Never mind. Trying to understand it makes my head hurt. Anyway, listen, this may all sound nitpicky, but if you want me to be invested in your universe, it needs to operate on clear and understandable rules that I can follow. How do I get invested if your fiction doesn't even follow its own rules, or far too often fails to even establish them? And God forbid, if you want to watch the Doctor Strange film as a sequel to the first Doctor Strange, between that one and this one, to understand what's going on here, you need to have watched Avengers Age of Ultron, Captain America Civil War, the first Doctor Strange, Thor Ragnarok, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, and Spider-Man No Way Home, and all of the TV shows I've mentioned above. Listen, unless you've been following this from the start and not missed any of these, then it's not worth trying to catch up just so that you can ingest the cinematic equivalent of slop. Even if you have caught up with all of this, just don't bother. Anyway, back to Wanda's character then. As mentioned, she's just as much the main character in this film as Doctor Strange is, if not more so justifies a look at her development and motivations. Last time we see her in this universe is WandaVision, where she possessed a whole town to live in a fantasy where she has children with her now dead boyfriend Vision. Ripping that show apart is a whole of the matter, but it's enough to say that by the end of that show, Wanda had let the residents of Westview go free, is regretful of the literal psychological torture she put them through, and has the Darkhold in her possession. They did forgive her at the end of that show because she was a girl boss, but still, she was basically a villain. Now, by the time we see her in this film, she's gone full evil. Within 5 minutes of her first scene, she's revealed to have been the one sending demons after America. Stupid name, America Chavez. And then 5 minutes after that, she's bombarding the magician's stronghold and casually murdering magicians who are trying to keep America safe. Once again, stupid name. The pacing in this film is honestly wild. Now, I am at least glad they kept her a villain, despite the strong, independent black woman forgiving her at the end of WandaVision. It did have me worried that they were going to ignore that she enslaved the whole town just to keep her fantasy life with fake kids, but this transition from TV to film is just way too sharp. She goes from being a regretful half-villain, sympathetic anti-hero at the end of WandaVision to a full-on murderous psychopath in this film who at multiple times possesses an alternate version of herself in a parallel universe and forces her to murder innocents. I would have liked to have seen the development that led to this drastic shift. It kind of helps me to understand where the character is and what she's thinking, and the influence of the Darkhold and introduction of the Scarlet Witch in WandaVision also makes it unclear as to whether the actions we're viewing are really being motivated by Wanda in the first place, or the various dark magic beings and artifacts that seem to have taken control of her. The drama of her character is lost if I'm not even sure she's got agency over her own actions. And then there's the sheer level of coincidence that drives this plot forward, like Doctor Strange just happening upon the main villain Wanda when he's trying to figure out who sent the interdimensional demons after America. Even before that, there's the coincidence of America landing in Doctor Strange's universe at the right place and time to be within view of him when she's being attacked by one of Wanda's monsters. Even before that, America herself is the one person in the whole universe who can hop at will between universes, and is in fact the only version of herself that exists within the multiverse without any of the doppelgangers that all of the other characters have. I get that they're establishing mysteries for an America Chavez film, can't wait for that one, but when the entire plot revolves around her powers, it's kind of important to understand these things. And isn't it incredible? Then every single other infinite universe, Wanda has kids, but this, the one universe where she doesn't have kids, also happens to be the universe that holds the temple that binds all the infinite number of Darkholds together, and if destroyed will destroy all of them across the multiverse. Now that sounds to me like an awfully convenient way to write yourself out of the corner you'd so obviously written yourself into. And this is all not to say about how quickly the plot of the film falls apart when you ask one simple question. Why didn't Wanda just ask America to teleport her to a universe where she's already dead but her kids are alive? They really shot themselves in the foot by at one point specifying that there's infinite universes and that dreams are visions into our alternative lives. It's even reinforced when Wong says that his recurring dream where he's naked being chased by a clown is actually a vision from a universe out there where that's happening to him. If there's a universe in the literally infinite multiverse where something that ridiculous can happen, there is at least one where Wanda can enter without having to murder or possess her alternate self. What they should have done is limit the number of multiverses to only a few hundred if they want the multiverse concept. That way they could plausibly say that there really is no other universe where Wanda's ideal circumstances exist, but they didn't. Along with all the other issues it causes, it again just makes her seem stupid. But alas, this decision destroys the whole narrative purely through the hubris of obviously wanting there to be infinite universes so they can use that in the future for more stories if they ever want to bring characters back to life. Don't be surprised if you see Robert Downey Jr. returning to these in a few years when he gets bored and fancies a nice big paycheck. Now that I've gone through all of the nerdy stuff that bothered me, and should bother you too if you care about film, let's discuss the simultaneously subtle and yet at the same time absurdly in-your-face political messaging of the film. Why is it subtle? How is it subtle, you may ask? Well, because in the film itself there is no direct conversation about anything political, save for one throwaway line about most universes not having to pay for food and how it's so weird that our universe is the only one that needs to pay for food, although that is played as a joke and leads to the Bruce Campbell cameo that I mentioned earlier, which is the best part of the film, so while it is irritating, I can forgive it. But what is unforgivable and impossible not to notice is that America Chavez, whose name alone, as I've mentioned, sounds like some dumb political statement, has an outfit decorated with the stars and stripes and a small badge bearing the racial pride flag on it that you see in every scene that she is in up until the end. The close-ups is unavoidable. It's just there. She is a neon walking billboard screaming the political beliefs of the writers, producers, and everyone involved in this production. What makes this stand out even more than it just being there is that she's from an alternate universe where she has two mothers. This is her tragic backstory. We see a brief glimpse of this universe in her tragic backstory where she's not wearing it. So when America traveled through the multiverse, she found somewhere that had this badge, understood and agreed with the political and social sentiments behind it, and then decided to include it in her outfit. This is a hell of a series of coincidences and weird cultural crossovers between people from literal alternate universes, or alternatively, the writers wanted to make clear their political beliefs and rub it in the viewers' faces at every opportunity. It's a disgusting display of political partisanship. Worse is that America herself just seems to be a walking political statement, but that political statement is unclear what it is, apart from "this will be America's future," a border-hopping immigrant who has all the right political opinions and two mothers. But if that's all it's not saying it very clearly. She's just a hodgepodge of random leftist signalling stuck together with duct tape and gum. What does it actually say? What's the deeper meaning behind her being called America and being a Hispanic immigrant? What does it say about her character that she wears the racial pride badge? Realistically, it adds nothing, both to her character, the story, and the themes. So once again, it's purely for the sake of displaying political partisanship. And as a character in herself, America is as bland as they come. Her tragic backstory ends with her being scared by a bee and opening a portal to an alternate universe that sucks up her two mums and then her, separating them all forever. And listen, I don't know what they were thinking the reaction would be when they wrote that scene, but I thought it was hilarious. She just flings her family into the multiverse because a bee spooked her. I know there's the trope of young heroes causing damage through being unable to control their powers, but they couldn't think of something better than that. It's hardly compelling. And then mixed in with America's complete lack of character development and sudden change at the end to being able to control her powers completely, a moment that the film seems to think it has been earned, but hasn't, it just makes her a clear and obvious virtue signal to the members of the audience who already agree with Hollywood and a hollow, subversive, and undeveloped waste of time to everyone else. I could go on, but I think it's clear that this film sucks. If you haven't watched it, I wouldn't recommend going out of your way to unless you feel like giving yourself a migraine. Any potential, any enjoyment to be taken from this film as a Sam Raimi production is sadly suffocated by the exponential and terminal writing problems the film suffers from. And this goes for the rest of the MCU right now as well. At this point, I can't wait for the whole thing to just collapse in on itself, if that's ever allowed to happen. Anyway, I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10.